The message arrived on a Tuesday. It was not a greeting. It was not an invitation to a grand galactic community. It was a bill for a service we never ordered. The signal came from everywhere at once. It spoke in the pure language of mathematics. Its meaning was unmistakable, a law from the dawn of time itself. It was addressed to all young races, those who had just learned to split the atom, those who had just begun to dream of the stars. The message was simple and absolute. Stay home. Your star system is your cradle, your playpen, and your cage. To attempt travel between the stars was forbidden. This decree was signed by a power we could not comprehend, an empire of ghosts calling themselves the progenitors. They claimed to be the first, the ones who set the rules for the cosmos. We were expected to listen. We were expected to obey. They thought we would be good little children. They had clearly never met humanity. We listened to the ancient decree. We translated its stark, cold command. Then we looked at each other across our world. We saw the same fire in every eye, a spark of defiance that had defined us for millennia. We'd climbed every mountain. We had charted every sea. We were not a species that took kindly defenses. The global councils convened. The debates were the shortest in human history. Some argued for caution. They warned of the power that could issue such a command. But their voices were drowned out by a single, rising chorus, a unified voice that echoed from every city, every nation, every heart. The answer was a resounding no. We would not be confined. We would not live in fear of a shadow. The stars were not a ceiling. They were a destination. Humanity stood as one. We made our unanimous choice. Our cradle would not become our prison. We decided to stand up and walk. So we began to build our key, a key to unlock the galaxy. We called it the Audacity, a name that felt just right. It was more than a ship. It was our collective answer forged in steel and fire. Our finest minds gathered. Our strongest industries worked together. All our old squabbles seemed so small. The Audacity took shape under artificial suns. Its frame rose in the high orbit of our world. It was a spear aimed at the heart of the great unknown, a testament to our stubborn, unyielding spirit. Every plate of its hull was a promise. Every circuit was a declaration of intent. We knew we were breaking the oldest law in the galaxy. We knew we might be inviting our own doom. But to live in a cage was not living at all. The ship was our shared dream, our unified will made manifest. We were about to knock on a very old door, and we were not planning to be polite about it. The day came. The crew of the Audacity stood ready. The world watched, holding its breath. Down here we felt the rumble in our bones, a deep vibration that was more than just energy. It was the feeling of a species taking its first true step. The ship's core ignited. A star was born in miniature. The Audacity engaged its drive. Space itself seemed to scream in protest. A hole was torn in the fabric of reality, a shimmering wound of impossible colors. It was a sight of terrible beauty, a violation of every law we had been given. We had crossed the forbidden threshold. The jump was instantaneous. One moment, we were in our own backyard. The next, we were trespassers in a silent kingdom. The darkness here was different, older, deeper. We had made it. We had broken the progenitor's law. A feeling of triumph washed over us. It did not last long. We had arrived in an empty system. A lone red dwarf star cast a gloomy light. There were no planets, no asteroid belts, just a profound and unnerving stillness. But we were not alone. Something was watching us, something immense, It hung in the void like a forgotten god. A perfect sphere, the size of a small moon. Its surface was a matte black. It absorbed all light, all scans, all hope. It was ancient beyond imagination. A silent guardian waiting for a password we did not have. As our ship drifted closer, it began to stir. Lines of faint light traced across its dark surface. They formed complex geometric patterns. The object was waking from a sleep of ages. It had detected our unlawful presence. A low hum resonated through our ship's hull. Not a sound, but a pressure. A feeling of being judged by something ancient and vast. The silent guardian had a name. It projected its identity directly into our minds. It called itself a warden, an enforcer of the progenitor's law. Its voice was like grinding glaciers, cold, implacable, and absolute. It had one mission: to keep the children in their designated playpens. Its message was as stark as the one before it. You have violated the first and final law. The warden's words felt like physical blows. Your existence is an error, a deviation from the great plan. Return to your designated star system immediately. Power down your unlawful vessel. The warden then delivered its judgment. Comply or face immediate nullification. Nullification. It was a word colder than the void itself. It meant erasure, utter and complete oblivion. The warden did not threaten. It stated a fact. It was a hammer, and we were the nail. We looked at the image of the warden on our screens. This colossal enforcer of a forgotten law. We saw its power. We felt its ancient certainty. But we did not power down our weapons. We did not turn our ship around. Our captain stood on the bridge of the Audacity. She looked at the moon-sized sentinel. And she did something it did not expect. She asked a question. A simple question. A question that had apparently never been asked before. The warden expected fear. It expected defiance in the form of weapons fire. It expected a desperate plea for mercy. It was not prepared for a philosophical inquiry. The warden's logic was binary. Obey or be destroyed. There was no third option in its programming. But our captain offered one. She opened a channel. Her voice was calm, clear, and carried across the void. She asked the question that would change everything. The question was simple, deceptively so. Who gave the progenitors their authority? We transmitted the words in every language we knew. We sent them in pure mathematics. We broadcast our query to the silent, waiting giant. And then we waited. The warden did not respond immediately. For the first time in a million years, perhaps more, it paused. Its glowing patterns flickered, a subtle stutter in its otherwise perfect light show. We had given it a command it could not process, a query that fell outside its operational parameters. It was a logic bomb, delivered with a smile. Its entire existence was based on a single premise. The progenitors had authority. Their law was absolute. It was the foundation of the warden's being. But it had never been required to justify that foundation. It was built to enforce orders, not to question their origin. It was the galactic equivalent of a very serious bouncer. And we had just asked to see his manager. The warden's network began to ripple. This single, silent guardian was not a solitary unit. It was a node in a vast, interconnected system, a web of sentinels spanning the entire galaxy. Our question, our little logic bomb, was not contained. It spread. We could detect the change in its energy signature. A wave of something akin to confusion radiated from it. It was like watching a perfectly stable machine suddenly develop a fatal tremor. The query propagated from warden to warden. a virus of pure thought. In 1,000 other star systems, other sentinels paused. Their own glowing patterns faltered. Their directives, once so clear, were now clouded. Who did give the progenitors their authority? The question was a paradox. Authority that cannot be questioned is not authority. It is just force. And force can always be met with greater force, or in our case, with a better question. The system was faltering. The machine built to uphold order was grinding to a halt. Its own internal logic was tearing it apart. We had not fired a single shot. We had simply held up a mirror. For countless millennia, the galaxy had been quiet, a silence imposed by fear. Countless races had received the decree. They saw the wardens. They understood the threat. And they obeyed. They stayed in their stellar cradles. They never reached for the stars. They never dared to ask why. They accepted the law as a fact of the universe, like gravity or the speed of light. But it wasn't a law of physics. It was just a rule. And rules are made by people, or in this case, by progenitors. Rules can be questioned. They can be challenged. And they can be broken. Now, a young race from a forgotten corner of the galaxy had done just that. We had looked at the galactic bully. We had not flinched. We had challenged the very foundation of its power. A galaxy held its breath. The silence was no longer one of fear. It was a silence of anticipation. Someone had finally talked back, and everyone was listening to see what would happen next. We did not leave the warden to its troubled thoughts. We followed our question with a statement, a declaration broadcast on all frequencies, not just to the warden, but to the silent stars themselves, to anyone who might be listening. Our captain's voice rang out from the Audacity, a voice for all of humanity. "We are humanity," she said. "We come from a world called Earth. We were told this galaxy was not for us. We were ordered to stay in our home, to abandon our future. We were told to obey." A pause hung in the void, heavy with unspoken meaning. Obedience is not our way. The declaration was our creed, our simple and unshakable truth. "We do not recognize unearned authority," she continued. "We do not bow to ancient threats. The stars belong to no one. They belong to everyone with the courage to reach for them. We are here to claim our inheritance, not as subjects, but as equals." It was a line drawn in the stardust, a point of no return. We were not just breaking a law, we were announcing a new one, the law of self-determination. We would not be children anymore. Then we did something even more audacious. Our ship did not retreat. It did not wait for the warden to reboot its confused mind. The Audacity's drive began to glow once more. The energy reading spiked, far higher than before. We were not making a quiet escape. We were making a point. The warden's light patterns shifted wildly. It recognized the energy signature. It understood what was about to happen. But it was still trapped in its logic loop. It was powerless to act. Its weapon systems remained cold. Its directive was frozen. All it could do was watch. The Audacity jumped again. A second, brilliant tear in space-time. We ripped another hole in the progenitor's law. This was not just a violation anymore. It was a statement of contempt. A second, louder step into the forbidden dark. We plunged deeper into the galaxy, leaving the paralyzed warden in our wake. We were a stone skipping across a pond that had been still for 1 billion years. Our defiance did not go unnoticed. Out there in the quiet systems where ancient races dwelled, something stirred. They had seen our first jump signature, a brief flicker of unlawful energy, an anomaly. They had dismissed it, an error, a fluke. But the second jump was impossible to ignore. It was deliberate. It was loud. And then they received our broadcast, our declaration of freedom. Our question echoed in forgotten corners of the galaxy. It reached minds that had been dormant for ages, races that had accepted their confinement. They had traded their ambition for safety. They had chosen the comfort of the cage over the dangers of the sky. Our words and our actions were a shock to their ancient systems. Whispers began to spread among the stars, not through radio waves, but through older, stranger means. The dream networks of the gas giants of Cygnus, the empathic chorus of the crystalline beings in the Orion Spur. They had all heard the story of the cage. We were the first ones to ever try and pick the lock. Our question was the key. Who gave the progenitors their authority? It was a seed of rebellion planted in the fertile ground of 1,000,000 years of suppressed desire. Our act of defiance was not just our own. It had become a galactic event. We had woken the sleepers. The Warden Network was in chaos. Our simple question had proven more effective than any weapon. The system was paralyzed. It was a beautiful, elegant failure of logic. The Wardens were built for enforcement. They were binary, obey or destroy. They were not built for philosophy. Imagine a network of the galaxy's most powerful sentinels, each the size of a moon, each capable of extinguishing a star. All of them brought to a standstill by 7 simple words. The irony was not lost on us. We found it quite funny. The great and powerful enforcers had been defeated by a thought experiment. The network's rigid system was its own undoing. It had no capacity for nuance, no room for doubt. It was a perfect machine for an unchanging universe. But the universe had just changed. Humanity had arrived, and we had a habit of breaking things, especially perfect, unchanging things. The old order was unraveling, not with a bang, but with a system error. We stood on the bridge of the Audacity. We looked out at a new star field. A new frontier opened before us. The silence that greeted us was not the silence of a prison. It was the silence of an open door. The Warden Network was down. The great law was broken. The path was clear. We were told the stars were not ours to claim, that we were too young, too reckless, too loud. We were told to sit down and be quiet. We were given a set of rules we never agreed to. We were supposed to ask for permission to exist, to dream, to explore. We looked out at the sea of suns, at the endless shimmering promise of the galaxy. And we understood a fundamental truth, a truth we had always known in our hearts. We never needed their permission. We never needed anyone's permission to be free. Our freedom was ours to take, and we had just taken it. The age of humanity had begun.